This video is made possible by our sponsors, AJA. We'd like to thank AJA for all their support and tell you to go to aja.com for all your production and post-production needs. Hi, I'm Gordon Burkell from Filmmaker U. At Filmmaker U, we create courses for film professionals to deepen and diversify your existing skill set. You can learn more at filmmakeru.com or, of course, follow us on Instagram at filmmaker_u. Every week, we interview a film professional to discuss their work, and this week I'm joined by cinematographer Eric Branco, who recently shot Rap Shit and the feature Story Avenue. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I guess my question for you is for Story Avenue, how did you get started on this project?
Yeah, Story Ave. The director Aristotle Torres was in the labs of Story Ave at Sundance. And so he was at Sundance at the same time that I was, saw a film I shot called Clemency, and reached out based on my work on that film. And then I had a film. He was also at Sundance the next year. I was back with a film called The 40-Year-Old Version. And so that's when we actually met in person and hung out. And we're both in the Bronx, got along great, and decided to go on this crazy journey together.
I've been a camera person for 30 years, and I fell in love with cinema. I heard there was free film school in France, and I wanted to get into the French film school. I really didn't know anything at the time, but I knew at least how to take pictures. So I said, I'll try for the image department. And then when I miraculously got into the French film school, I fell in love with working with the camera. You're following what's going to be in the movie. So that immediacy that the camera allows is what I loved from the beginning. I'm Kirsten Johnson, and this is my course about documentary cinematography.
So when you guys got together and sort of realized that you're going to work on this project, how did you figure out the look and style of the cinematography with him?
Well, I mean, I think there was a bit of a shorthand initially just because, we're the same age, we're from the same place. And so I think we had a little bit of a shorthand in terms of kind of what our touchstones were and what our references were and what we knew we wanted to lean towards. And so I think one of the things we came to really early on was that we wanted to present the Bronx and present people from the Bronx in a way that they maybe haven't been before. A lot of these kinds of I think as kind of an urban story and a story about graffiti in that world, I think maybe the go-to would be to do a kind of like a handheld kind of gritty thing. And we really want to go in the opposite direction and shoot this in a really kind of like classical dolly sticks, kind of a little more considered in our camera language. And then so that was really our starting point. And everything kind of branched out from there.
Well, speaking of camera language, I couldn't help but notice there is, and I don't know if it's a reference or what, but there's a sort of Spike Lee where he's moving down the hallway on the dolly shot. Was that planned before, something you guys thought about on set, or how did that come about?
Yeah, so we were trying to kind of figure out a way to introduce Kadir and introduce the fact that, when the movie starts, Kadir is at his brother's wake, which is kind of like a very difficult thing for him to process. And so he pops a couple pills, and that kind of like we had to figure out a way visually to show that he's kind of not grounded, which, literally, he pops the pills, we cut to an insert, and we see his feet kind of lift off the floor, and then he's floating down the hallway, in that kind of Spike Lee shot.
Yeah.
And then we cut down and his feet are kind of like, dragging along the floor. So yeah, I mean, I think just that shot and that kind of language is so in our bones as kind of New York filmmakers of a certain age that, yeah, that was definitely something we talked about.
Well, and I noticed the use of colors, especially in those early scenes. So I'm wondering, because like you said, it deals with graffiti and what have you. How did you guys incorporate color in this film?
So one of our kind of rules is that Kadir's brother Malik is kind of represented by the color gold. So, the opening scene is all set at sunset, because kind of we're, it's Malik's world, and it's his wake, and so there's kind of these like big golden beams of sunlight coming into the house for that whole scene. And then we transition away from that, and we go from the wake to Kadir's kind of like graffiti house hangout, this place called OTL outside the lines. And we decided to go really bold with color there, to kind of, reflect that kind of colorful graffiti world, but also, to make it a really colorful and enticing place. The movie, the story kind of hinges on whether or not Kadir is going to kind of fall in deep with these guys or take a different path. And we really wanted to sell that by showing kind of how enticing this world could be. And so it is this kind of bright, loud, exciting, colorful place that does make it hard to kind of walk away from.
So is there a particular scene or element that you had to shoot that was really difficult to execute, but you're really pleased with the outcome in this film?
Yeah, I think so. The movie really takes a turn when Kadir, as part of his like initiation into OTL, has to stick somebody up and get their wallet. That's kind of initiation, and he ends up sticking up this older MTA worker, and then they form a relationship, and the movie that's when the movie really takes off. But that stick up scene on the subway platform was one of the most challenging things for us to do, because our permit did not give us enough time to shoot that entire scene. So we had to it is like, so they're like, I'm like, I've shot on the subway my entire life, and so the rules for filming on the New York subway are kind of like this gray area where you can film on the subway as long as you're not like in anyone's way, or using what they refer to in the official like rules as ancillary equipment. And the examples they give are like tripods or reflectors. So we shot that scene half like permitted, because there is a gun involved and everything. So we switch up the language of the whole scene. So that's one of our only handheld sequences in the film, specifically because we knew we couldn't get it in time. So everything with the gun is shot with a permit, with a police officer there on the up and up. And then all the close-ups were shot at the same station later, without a gun, without anything, all handheld. It's like you see everything where, you see the gun is this, and then we went later and it's all finger guns, and it's just, we're inside the hand. And I think we did a good job. And I think when you see the movie, you can't tell that they were shot, at two different times.
So now who was your colorist, and how did you work with them to sort of figure out the look, like get this look for this film?
Yeah, so my colorist was this amazing colorist, Nat Jenks. He's done a lot for me in the last couple of years. He did 4-Year-Old Version. He did Let the Right One In, a show I did for Showtime. And so I shot this movie right on the heels of wrapping Let the Right One In. So we had been kind of in constant communication for, 6 or 8 months or so, talking about that project. And so when this thing came around, we were able to kind of really, Let the Right One In is like a very kind of like cool, subdued, horror blue kind of like kind of thing. And so with this, I was like, listen, I want to go the opposite direction. I want to go like kind of bright colors, a little louder, a little poppier. And so, over the course of a little bit of back and forth, we developed this look for this film. Something I always do is I try and move one of our color days from post into prep. So that, and then I'll grab a camera and run around, and shoot some material that, will kind of roughly fit the stuff that we're going to be filming when we actually start principal photography. So in this case, I ran out, I shot some stuff with Asante, our lead actor. I shot some stuff on the subway, shot some night exteriors, shot some day exteriors, and then took all that to Nat, and we built our LUT off of material shot kind of in similar locations, but with our actual actor, which was great.
Now, New York has some amazing street photographers. So when you guys were coming up with the look, did you guys turn to like any of those? Like I think about Jamal Shabazz or, like all these amazing artists. Like, did you turn to their styles or anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think for sure, a photographer, Khalik Allah, definitely works his way into the look of this film. Khalik is an amazing photographer, an amazing guy, and kind of like inserted himself into like the world of kind of like addicts on 125th and Lex. And a lot of his stuff is this kind of like shoots on film, and it's this kind of like beautifully saturated. Actually, this is a Khalik Allah shot behind me. This guy right here.
Yeah.
But he's yeah, it's like this really kind of like beautiful, soft backgrounds, bright colors. Definitely an influence on the way I work. I would also say probably Bruce Davidson's subway work is a huge influence. That's a Bruce Davidson shot there. Yeah, I think maybe those two are probably the two there's an amazing tradition of New York kind of black and white street photography, less so in color, but definitely Khalik, definitely Bruce Davidson, and I think actually we went to go see in the prep of this movie, we went to go see Gary Wanigran had an amazing exhibit of his color work at the Brooklyn Museum that we went to go see. Gary Wanigran is such like a black and white photographer, and after his death, they found like thousands of undeveloped rolls of color film, and developed.
That must have been amazing to discover.
Yeah, right. And the Brooklyn Museum set it up in a way where like you walked into a dark room and there were screens on every wall, and they were just doing like 20-foot projections of each photo.
That would be cool.
It's like overwhelmingly amazing.
Now, I have one last question for you. What would you say is your favorite guilty pleasure film or TV show to watch?
I don't know that it's such a guilty pleasure, but maybe Fight Club is one of my guilty pleasure movies. It's one of those movies I saw when I was like at the perfect age. I was like, this movie was made to speak to me. And, I know every line from it and everything. And I recently they screened it at a theater here in LA, and I went to go see it with a bunch of friends. It was great. It was like a Rocky Horror. When I was like growing up, they used to do the Rocky Horror Picture Show at like midnight every Friday in New York.
Now it's Fight Club.
Fight Club was like a very similar.
Everyone shows up dressed as their favorite character.
Exactly.
So, well, thank you so much for letting me interview today.
Oh, thank you so much. It was great.
That's it for this week, everyone. Make sure to check us out at filmmakeru.com or, of course, on Instagram at filmmaker_you. I'm Gordon Burkell. Thanks for watching. This video is made possible by our sponsors, AJA. We'd like to thank AJA for all their support and tell you to go to aja.com for all your production and post-production needs.